Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I've got another 240SX video, but this one is going to be a bit different. I'll be installing and reviewing the Ottocast Screenflow. This is a new high-definition widescreen display. It's a floating unit to where with something like this, you could put it in your car, super simple, straightforward, and bring all of the modern technology that we've become accustomed to with our phones and whatnot in a easy-to-use interface so you don't have to mess with your phone. Or you could put it in a late model vehicle that you don't want to go through the expense of, ripping the original radio out and doing wiring and this and that, custom work. This is a very simple, straightforward install. Again, really easy to use. Now with the 240, obviously I restored and built the interior in a way that it was very simple and kind of reminiscent, I guess, of the late 90s, early 2000s tuner scene. So this is going to give the interior definitely a different look, and I love the simplicity of like my old school radio and stuff, but in day-to-day usability in 2026, especially driving long distances in cities and places that I'm not familiar with, this is going to greatly improve the overall usability and my overall comfort of driving this car. So, before I dive into what this product is and how it works, I need to set the stage a little bit. When I originally finished building this car, the entire goal was to keep it true to the late 90s and early 2000s tuner spirit. I didn't want a big modern touchscreen in the bottom of the dash that dominated the whole center stack. I just didn't want excessive tech. I wanted the car to feel like something you would have seen at a car meet in like 2002. That's why the newest piece of technology in here is my digital Haltech dash, and even that I've customized to kind of mimic the look of an old school analog cluster. For audio, I actually went out of my way to track down a period correct Pioneer head unit, single disc CD drive, auxiliary input, and all of those classic little animations that made these radios so cool back in the day. And honestly, the sound quality is fantastic. So adding a modern infotainment system at the end of the day was just never part of the plan. But real-world daily driving has a way of changing your priorities. Now here's the honest truth. As fun and nostalgic as this setup is, using it every day in 2026 is just not the most convenient. Unfortunately, we're pretty much all spoiled at this point. When I'm driving in areas I don't know, I don't have built-in navigation, I don't have a phone mount, so I end up picking up my phone and glancing at it way more than I'd like. Music control can also be a bit more involved. The Pioneer radio works great, but it's obviously dated compared to modern systems. Switching playlists or pulling up directions just takes a lot more effort than it should. In a car like this, with a heavy clutch, stiff suspension, and general race car personality, you really want to minimize distractions as much as possible. So when Ottocast reached out to me about the Screenflow, I figured I'd give it a try as a daily driving aid. The idea was pretty simple, just add some modern convenience without permanently changing anything about the car. The Ottocast Screenflow is essentially a portable, self-contained infotainment system. It's an 11.4-inch touchscreen display that gives you wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, built-in Android apps, standalone navigation, an optional backup camera, and full multimedia capability. Basically, instead of replacing your factory head unit, it just sits on top of the dashboard and works alongside it. For a car like mine, where I specifically wanted to keep the old school Pioneer radio, it's a perfect solution. I get all of the modern features while keeping the exact interior aesthetic I built the car around. And here's something I realized almost immediately. The Screenflow ended up being an even better fit for this car than I expected. The 240SX dashboard slopes downward quite a bit, but there's a nice flat-ish area right in the middle just above the air vents. The mounting base on the Screenflow is flexible, so it can contour over slight curves on the dash. The base just has 3M tape on the bottom, so whatever surface that you place it on, you just got to make sure to prep the area thoroughly so there's no, conditioner or anything like that that can, obviously affect adhesion. It's also recommended once you get the mounting base in place that you let it sit and cure for 24 hours before mounting the screen itself. Once mounted, it does not pop over the windshield header and it doesn't block forward visibility at all. It sits perfectly within my line of sight, but it in no way impedes my vision. Now, you're going to have to double check your vehicle to see if this is going to be a right fit for it. Obviously, depending on the style of dashboard and windshield slope angle, all this kind of stuff, where the screen sits is going to matter. So double check, just make sure it's not going to be like directly within your line of sight. When it comes to power, you do have options. You can plug it into a standard 12-volt outlet, which is the easiest route, or if you have a USB outlet, you can run it that way as well. I even thought about hardwiring this one for an ultra clean install, I just haven't finalized my plan yet. Realistically, no matter how you set it up, you're probably going to have at least a couple of visual cables between the power lead, the aux cable running to the radio, and the backup camera wire, if you choose to hook it up. I'm going to clean things up with some braided wire loom to make everything look as tidy and factory as possible. Installation in this car was about as simple as it gets. I mounted the screen to the dashboard using the included stand, ran power to it, connected the auxiliary cable from my Pioneer radio, paired it with my phone, and that was pretty much it. No trim removal, no wiring harnesses, no cutting into the car. And that was a big plus for me. Even if I installed a double-din touchscreen instead of the Pioneer head unit, I'd still have to look down to mess with it, which, again, is not totally ideal. If I ever decide, for whatever reason, that I don't want to have the screen on the dash, I can simply unplug it and remove it in seconds. It's completely reversible. The display itself is an 11.4-inch panel with a 1920 by 720 resolution, and in person it looks really sharp. It's large enough to be useful, but not so big that it feels ridiculous sitting in a late 80s interior. Underneath, it runs Android 13 with a quad-core processor, 2 GB of RAM, 32 GB of storage, dual-band Wi-Fi, and dual Bluetooth. Plenty of capability for what it needs to do. Now here's how I've got mine configured. Even though the Ottocast Screenflow has built-in speakers, I have turned them off. All of the audio is routed through my existing Pioneer radio just like any other auxiliary device. That means I still get to enjoy the classic interface, the physical buttons, the retro animations, and the great sound quality from this setup. The ScreenFlow just acts as a modern control center sitting on top. One really cool feature is the dual Bluetooth capability. You can have one phone connected for hands-free calling and another device connected strictly for audio streaming at the same time. So if you've got a passenger who wants to play DJ, that's totally possible without disconnecting your main phone. And in terms of audio quality, the music coming from the ScreenFlow honestly sounds just as good as using my phone directly or my old school iPod. For me, the biggest advantage is wireless Apple CarPlay. As soon as I start the car, it automatically connects to my phone and launches CarPlay. Now I've got full screen navigation, Spotify and Apple Music, hands-free calling, text messaging, voice control, all on one big, clear, widescreen display. No more picking up my phone, no more squinting at a tiny map, and no more app juggling. It just makes the driving experience safer and less stressful. And because this is a full Android-based device, it can do more than just mirror your phone. You can run apps directly on the ScreenFlow itself, like YouTube, Netflix, standalone navigation apps, streaming services, web browsing. Obviously, video apps are for when you're parked, but it's a pretty cool feature to have. There's also support for an optional 1080p backup camera, which could be a huge upgrade for an older car like this that obviously never came with one from the factory. At the end of the day, the Ottocast Screenflow ended up fitting this car way better than I expected. I still get to keep the period-correct interior, my classic Pioneer head unit, and the late 90s, early 2000s aesthetic. But I also get modern navigation, wireless music streaming, hands-free calling, a big, easy-to-read display, and far fewer distractions while driving. And because it mounts cleanly on the sloped dashboard without blocking visibility, it feels like a natural addition instead of an awkward afterthought. For anyone with an older car, especially a build where you don't want to ruin the original vibe, this is a really smart way to add some modern tech without compromising what makes the car special. Aside from figuring out my cable routing, the last thing I need to do is install the backup camera, which really could not be any simpler. The most complicated thing is just figuring out where you're going to route your cable through your interior. It's going to involve a little bit of mild disassembly depending on what you're working with, but that's nothing surprising there. What I really like though is how they did their wiring for this backup camera. All you have to do is connect the little 3.5mm aux jack looking thing to the port on the side of the head unit, and then at the very back you've just got one red wire that you attach to the positive side of your reverse light wiring. You can totally customize the camera settings from the head unit. Depending on where you mount your camera, you might want to invert the image or change the mirroring of the image. You can do all of that. You can also toggle the grid lines on or off, and you can customize the positioning of the grid lines. You can get everything completely dialed in. It's a really, really easy setup process. Also, depending on where you're mounting the camera, you can mount it with screws or you can use the provided double-sided 3M tape. Of course, make sure you prep the area first. For me, I had a nice little flat tab of my bumper right above the license plate so I can use the double-sided tape and attach the camera, and it gives me a nice centered image behind the car. I then routed the cable through the inner structure of the rear bumper, and I disassembled a little bit of the trunk so I can get down and drill a small hole and pass the cable through to the interior. Of course, I used a little rubber weather-tight grommet so nothing's going to come in the car and it stays nice and insulated. After verifying that everything works, getting everything tightened down at the back, and getting all my settings adjusted, now I just have to figure out routing the cable like all the other cables. Well guys, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this video. If you'd like to learn more or purchase an Ottocast Screenflow, check out the link that I provided down in the description box below. I'm not quite done with all of the finishing work. Quite frankly, I don't have time to finish it right this minute, but I wanted to at least show you guys the idea, the installation, the setup, and just give you a quick run through of my plan for making it look all nice and tidy. So right now, I've just got it connected to this switched USB power bank that I put in the center console, just in place of the original cigarette lighter. You can also, again, plug it into a 12-volt outlet. That's the easiest and quickest way to get it powered up. I'm going to end up hardwiring it. I had to order a special cable, basically a USB cable to a red and black 12-volt pigtail, so I'll tie that into an appropriate circuit to where when I turn the key, ignition power, it'll automatically come on just like the radio will. As far as these cords right here, like I said earlier, I'm going to be using some braided split loom, like something that you would use nice pretty engine bay wiring harness. I'm going to be doing that, so all of this will be bunched up, and then I'm basically going to take it into the dash, behind the dash. I don't want the cables going underneath or down the side. I don't want to see them in the center console. Like I said, it's unavoidable to not have a little bit of visible cable, but if I can just have it in this little section right here all nicely, or tightly bound, I think that's going to work out just fine. But if you haven't already, keep an eye on my social media platforms. I primarily use Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube community page. On Instagram and Facebook, my handle is @SobKyle04LLC. As soon as I finish all of this tidy work, I will be posting follow-up pictures and just a general summary of what I did. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to leave a like down below because it really helps the videos a lot. And if you haven't subscribed already, consider doing that as well, and make sure you turn those notifications on. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.